Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm going to be creating some Christmas ornaments. For my projects today, I'm going to be using this plastic bauble that I got from a dollar store here in Australia. Now this particular one is 14 centimeters in length. Now it has a screw-on cap, which is really handy. I'm going to begin by adding my 2-in-1 primer in white by Paint Couture. I'm going to add one coat, let it dry, then I'll add another coat and give that about an hour to dry. Next, I took out my Redesign Lucian Mould. I'm dusting one of the frame designs with cornstarch, and then I'm working my Darcy dry clay into this beautiful frame design. So I'm just pushing out the excess and making sure that I've got that filled. Then I'm going to flex it, flip it over, and carefully release my casting. I am going to be using my Sealy's Quickset wood glue on the back of my casting, and I am using clay because I find that it molds just so much better to the surface than resin. So I'm going to position that on my bauble ornament there, gently press it down, and then I took out my Regal Filaments mold by Redesign, and I'm going to be dusting one of those with cornstarch. I'm thinking about what I'm going to have along the outside, almost sort of along the seam on each side of my ornament. So I'm just again pushing my clay in, then pushing the excess out, and then I'm going to flex it. And again, gravity really is a big help to release castings. I'm then going to add glue directly to the surface of my ornament there, and then I'm going to gently position my trim piece there. I did end up taking off one of the pieces because it was a little bit too long, and then I'm going to cast another one of those, and I'm going to glue that to the other side of the ornament so that they meet down the bottom in the center. Next, I took out my Timeless Ties mold by Redesign. I'm dusting one of the bows with cornstarch, and then I'm going to work my Dust Air Dry clay into this particular design. Now, I really love the size of this one. It is quite delicate. I often get a little bit of breakage on the tails of the ribbon there, but it is very easy to glue them back in place. So I'm going to be gluing this bow at the top of my ornament, and then I'm also going to cast another one, and I'm going to put that on the other side of the ornament so that they match. I let my castings dry overnight, and the next day I came in with Paint Couture's Buttercream chalk paint. I wasn't sure exactly what to do on the other side of my ornament as yet, so I left it blank for now. So I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this. I'm using a dabbing and stippling motion over the top of my ornament. And then when that was dry, I took out my Extreme Guard in Satin. I'm going to just be sealing the center part of my frame mold there because I want to use transfers, and the transfers stick better to a sealed surface. For my ornaments today, I'm going to be using Redesign's Floral Ambiance A4 transfer. This is from their latest release. It is perfect for Christmas ornaments. I'm going to be cutting out this sweet little image here of the flowers in the vase, and then I'm going to cut that to size so that it will fit. I did use the mold, as you can see to the right, there is a little bit of a guide to make some creases. I'm going to peel the backing of my transfer, and then I'm going to press it into the center and press down. Now I am going to get some wrinkles here. I'm going to get wrinkles because I am adding this to a curved surface, and it's really quite hard to avoid that when you are dealing with curved surfaces. So I'm just rubbing at my transfer with my transfer stick, lifting that plastic as I go. I'm also using my fingers to lightly press down on that transfer until I have it adhered. I then used that same Extreme Guard in Satin to seal the transfer in the center. I want a vintage look, so next I took out Paint Couture's Crackle Step 1. I'm going to be applying an even coat around the outside of that frame there, just on this side of the ornament. And then about 30 minutes later, I took out Crackle Step 2 and started applying it. I'm applying it in the same place that I have Crackle Step 1, and I am going to then use my hairdryer to speed up the drying process. At this point, I decided that I wanted to add a mold to the other side of the ornament. So I took out Redesign's Opulent Mould, and I'm going to be dusting that beautiful design there with the flowers with cornstarch, and then I'm using my Das air dry clay in it. I felt like this design really suited this ornament because obviously we have the vase of flowers on the other side. I added my Sealy's Quickset wood glue to the back of it and then added it to the other side of the ornament. I let my castings dry for a few hours and then I took out Paint Couture's Autumn Sage Chalk Paint. I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this just to this particular side of the ornament. I'm applying it in a dabbing and stippling motion as well so that we don't really get any brush strokes. And I am going to take it up halfway on the trim sort of style designs that we have on the side. I thought this color really suited this ornament because there was similar colors to this in the transfer design that we have in the center on the other side. Next, I took out Paint Couture's Van Dyke Brown Antiquing Glaze, and I am going to add it to the side that we have the crackle on. I'm going to be working in sections, applying it, working it into all of the details of the castings and also the cracks, and then I'm pulling the excess away with a wet wipe. I'm going to be applying this glaze over the entire ornament, including the other side that we have the autumn sage on. This is going to deepen up that green tone. I'm also going to be adding it over the frame in the center and even the transfer. As I said, I do want this to have a vintage look, but obviously if this look wasn't to your taste, you could definitely leave this step out. As you can see, I'm moving to the other side now to apply the glaze, and I just love how the glaze provides that beautiful definition and it really highlights details that might be hidden if you didn't use that glaze, particularly to sit down in those low points. When that glaze was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Bronze Lux Metallic. I'm going to be applying this with a makeup sponge on the high points of my castings on the other side first. So I'm dabbing that over the top. I'm trying not to work it too far down. I still want to be able to see that glaze that gives us that beautiful definition. I'm also going to be adding it to the bow up the top and also the beautiful molds we have down the sides. I'm loving the bronze in combination with the cream and the green, but obviously if this color wasn't to your taste, you could definitely adapt it to suit your style. Moving to the other side of the ornament, I did end up taking out a smaller artist brush so that I could go down the sides of the bow design on that one. I do want to go all the way down the sides on this one, and I'm also going to be using that same brush to go in and paint the bronze over the top of the frame in the center. Moving back to the other side, I did decide to use what bronze was left on my sponge, and I'm lightly going over the top of the areas that we have the lower green in there, and I'm just sort of dabbing that very lightly. I just want a little bit almost like it's gold leaf that's sort of faded away. So I'm just dabbing that on there, and then I am going to use a wet wipe to pull some of it back to soften the look a little bit. I wanted to bring some more of that green to the front, so I decided I would go in with a small artist brush and just add it to the lower point on the inside of that frame. So where we have that gap, you can see I'm working that green in just to bring a little bit of that color from the back so that it looks more like a cohesive piece. And then I also decided that I would dab some of that on the frame itself because it reminded me a lot of patina, and I thought that definitely tied in with the vintage old world look. I'm pulling a little bit of it back with a wet wipe, and then I did end up going back in and layering just a little bit more of that bronze back over the top to keep that shine. When that was dry, I took out my Aleene's tacky glue. I am going to be using that with this beaded trim that I got from eBay. I'm using a brush to apply the glue just to the outside rim of our artwork there. I just thought this would be a really nice way to sort of tidy it up and finish it off. So I've got the glue down. I'm then gently laying my beaded trim into my wet glue. Just taking my time there, gently winding that around, and when I have enough, I am going to trim the excess off. And then I took out my Extreme Guard in Satin and I gave the other side a coat of this clear coat to seal it all and to give it a bit of shine. When that was dry, I screwed the hanging attachment back onto the top, and I didn't love the color contrast here, so I did grab my sponge that has that bronze Lux Metallic on it, and I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this directly over the top of the metal there so that it ties in better. Finally, for my hanging attachment, I am threading through some corded gold ribbon. I got this from Kmart Australia a while ago. I'm going to pull that through the hole at the top. I'm going to cut it to size. I'm then going to tie just a simple knot. And then once that's secured, I'm going to trim off the excess. And here's a look at our first finished ornament. I really love how this turned out. The combination of the Redesign transfer and molds I think works really well. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. For my second ornament today, I primed the same type of bauble with Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer. And then I took out my Lucian Mould again. I'm going to be dusting one of the other ornate frame designs there with cornstarch, and I'm working my Das air dry clay into that design as well, pushing the excess out. And then I'm going to flex the mould and gently remove my casting. Just like with the other mold, I'm going to be using my Sealy's Quickset wood glue on the back, and I'm going to be adding this to the surface. While my castings are still wet, I'm gently going to mold it to that curved surface. And then I took out my Regal Aura mold, and I'm going to be dusting part of a design there, these beautiful little scrolls. I used them a lot in my previous advent calendar video. I'm going to be working my clay into both of those. And then I'm going to be flexing that mold to help release the clay, and then I'm going to gently remove it. I'm going to be adding these to the top, and I'm going to basically be creating my own little border out of these. So I'm going to cast the other one, and this one is going to go on the opposite side of the ornament. So we're framing out that beautiful ornate frame. So I'm going to cast those again, and I'm going to basically sort of flip that layout upside down and have those molds meet in the center at the bottom. As you can see, I did have a little bit of breakage, but again, when you're working with clay, it is very easy to get those pieces back together. I'm using the Timeless Ties mold again, but I am casting one of the different bows from that one, and this is going to go up the top of my ornament. Once that bow is glued in place, I'm going to be doing a partial casting from that same Regal Aura mold. I'm going to be pressing my clay into this sort of ornate design here, and then I'm going to be cutting off pieces of this so that it better suits the purpose that I want it to serve. So I'm cutting off some from the bottom, I'm cutting off those extra scrolls from the side, and this is going to go down the bottom of the ornament. I'm going to be casting 2 of those. You can see I've cast another bow, and that's going on the other side. And just like the other ornament, I did leave this side of the ornament blank while I decided what I wanted to do. I let that dry overnight, and the next day I added Paint Couture's Buttercream, again just like I did with the first ornament. I wasn't 100% sure on where I was going with color scheme at this point, so when that happens I do like to pick a neutral color to start off with so that it's easier for me to plan and work out where I'm going with each design. When that was dry, I added some of that Extreme Guard in Satin to the center of the frame because I am going to be adding a transfer from that same A4 transfer pack. I am going to be using this beautiful floral vase here, and that will go in the center of our frame. I'm going to cut around the outside so that it more closely resembles the shape of our frame here. And then once I have that cut to size, I'm going to peel that backing off and I'm going to position it in the center. So again, I am going to get wrinkles and I am just going to work my way around, just sort of adhering each little bit at a time. You could use decoupage paper for this step instead if you don't have transfers. I then used Extreme Guard in Satin again to seal the transfer. Next, I wanted to focus on the other side of the ornament. I'm going to be doing a partial casting of this same Regal Aura mold design here, but I'm just going to be casting the center part, not those little scrolls that were used around the outside. So I'm going to work my clay into that center part, and then I'm going to flex that mold, flip it over, and release my casting. I'm going to be using that same Silly's Quickset wood glue on the back, and this is going to go in the center part of the back of my ornament, and it fit really nicely. And because we were using parts of the same mold around the outside, I think it fit in well. After a few hours, I came in with Crackle Step 1. I'm going to be applying that around the outside of the frame design. Again, just like with the previous ornament, I'm just going to be having this on one side of the ornament in this particular section. I'm applying the Crackle Step 1. 30 minutes later, I added Crackle Step 2. Again, just really focusing it in the exact same spot that we had that Crackle Step 1 in. Again, I am going to be speeding up the drying process with my hairdryer. This is an optional step. You can let it dry naturally. And then I took out Paint Couture's Eggplant mineral paint. I'm focusing on the other side of the ornament while I let that crackle just settle. And I am applying this beautiful purple over the top of the center mold design, the top bow, and halfway onto the scrolls that we have framing around the outside. I ended up doing 1 and a bit coats. This had really good coverage. It has a built-in sealer too. And then I took out Van Dyke Brown Antiquing Glaze, and I am going to be working this over the top of that crackle and the scrolls. Now I did it in this order because I thought that I would be adding the glaze over the top of the eggplant section, and I did add it a little bit, but I found that it was just really hard to see, so I probably could have done this step before I added the eggplant. So I'm just adding the Van Dyke Brown glaze over the top of my castings, working in sections. I love the look of this crackle. I think it definitely ties in with that old world look that we're getting with the beautiful floral artworks in the center there. And obviously it makes the molds look just so beautiful. So I continued adding the glaze, moving on to adding it to the frame in the center and also over the top of the artwork. And then I'm going to pull the excess back. If I inspire you to try any of the Paint Couture or Redesign with Prima products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate links. You will find them in the description below. When the glaze was dry, I took out bronze Lux Metallic again, and just like with the first ornament, I'm using a makeup sponge to apply the bronze to the back section. I'm loving the contrast here of the bronze and that beautiful eggplant mineral paint. I'm going over the top of the center design there, and I'm also going to be going over the top of the beautiful bow up the top. And I'm also going to be going over the top of the scrolls on the side as well. Just like with the first ornament, I tried to pick a color for the other side that tied in with the artwork on the front. And I think this purple definitely goes nicely with that beautiful floral artwork that we added. And ordinarily, I would not use purple in my Christmas crafts, but I think it definitely just really suits this look today. Next, I took out a smaller artist brush to apply the bronze to the frame on the other side here that's framing our beautiful floral artwork, and I am sticking to the higher points. I still want to be able to see that glaze in the low points. And then I decided, just like with the other ornament, that I would bring some of the color from the other side to the front here. So I'm adding that eggplant just to that sweet bow up the top. I am using a smaller artist brush for this particular step. I'm trying not to get any on the section where we have the crackle. And then I did add the bronze, just like on the other side with the makeup sponge. I also added a bit more of the bronze up the top above the bow. I also then decided to use the makeup sponge to lightly dab more of that bronze into the background, just like we did with the first one. I really loved the look, and I am pulling back quite a bit of it. So again, I am going for a little bit more of almost that gold leaf faded look. You can leave this step out, but honestly, I love bronze, so this was just a nice way of bringing a bit more of that in and toning down a little bit of that eggplant. Next, I took out my Aleene's tacky glue again, and I'm going to be using an artist brush to apply some glue around the inner part of the frame. We're going to be adding that same beaded trim just like with the first one. This again is an optional step. I just really like the look of it, and I felt like it really tidied up that inner edge. So I'm applying a generous amount of glue, and then I'm going to start pressing the beads into that wet glue until I have them secured. Next, I reattached the top of the ornament, screwing that into place, and just like with the other one, I'm going to be using that bronze on a makeup sponge, applying 2 coats of that so that it better ties in with the rest of my ornament. And when that was dry, I added that same gold corded ribbon through the top. I then cut it to size and tied a knot. And here's a look at our second ornament. I had a lot of fun using a different color scheme than I usually would for Christmas ornaments with this one. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video and that it's given you some ideas on how you can create beautiful ornaments for your Christmas tree. Let me know if you had a favorite ornament from today. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find a full product list and my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks for watching.